My name is Anders Larsson. I work for SEB in the Baltic countries, working with corporate clients. Daily I have extremely interesting discussion with business leaders. And hereby I invite you to join these discussions. So please, welcome to my world. In this first episode, we will meet Rolandas. Rolandas is a very successful lawyer, but also an art collector and book collector. The reason why I picked Rolandas as the first discussion partner is because for me in my job, it's very important to ensure that we in SEB contribute to really good development of the Baltic countries. So what is needed then in the Baltic countries in order to be international competitive, to develop the societies in the best way to close the gap versus the Nordics and Europe when it comes to GDP per person and in general in happiness. This is the discussion I'm going to have with Rolandas and looking forward to.
Well, thank you for inviting me firstly. As you know, I'm Rolandas Valiūnas. My main position is I'm managing partner of the law firm Ellex Valiūnas. That's probably the largest and I hope the best law firm in the Baltics, but that could be argued, of course, by other people. Otherwise, I do a lot of public work. I'm chairman of Investors Forum. Investors Forum is the organization that unites the largest foreign investors. I'm chairing this organization for quite a few years already. And on Friday, we had the board meeting where I was re-elected for another 3 years. So I will continue with probably the best possible board to imagine that is represented by many investors in Lithuania. In addition, I'm the chairman of Baltic Management Institute. Well, again, I'm chairing it probably around 18 years, and that's beautiful business school in Lithuania that we have around 1,000 graduates during those years, and that makes very nice community of the people. So I could continue probably for 40 minutes about other public work I do. Maybe I just would say what else I do, that I believe is very interesting. I'm art collector, and I'm a art collector of what I call Lithuanistic art. Anything I collect should be related to Lithuania in the broader sense, which includes the present Belarus, part of Russia, or even Ukraine. So I collect the paintings, the old books, engravings, maps, whatever else. We have the very largest collection of the old maps, and we have probably all the maps where the Grand Duchy of Lithuania is depicted, but two. Because there is a catalog actually made by the Polish guy from Vilnius, but he lived in Germany, but he was of the Polish origin. And he had the biggest collections, he made the catalog. So I'm missing two from the catalog, but I have two that were not in his catalog. He missed two. You know, some of them are hanging here, but most of them are in the storage. Because, you know, in the beginning when I bought it, a few of them I just was framing them and putting on the wall. But then, you know, was no walls anymore.
No, I see.
When Lithuania merged with Poland in 1385, Lithuania definitely at that time was the largest country in Europe. Not by population, of course. Poland had 3 times more people living in Poland. That was different. Size-wise, Lithuania was 3 times larger.
In the Investors Forum, when you're discussing what could we do in order to make Lithuania as a country better to invest in for foreign investors, and then trying to maybe broaden that a little bit, not only talk about Lithuania, but the Baltics in general, Estonia and Latvia as well. What do you see as the main improvement areas for foreign investors? What is it that you are discussing as the most interesting topics to be developed?
Well, firstly, I would say Baltics are doing very well. And if you take Lithuania specifically, recalculated GDP per capita today is bigger than Spanish, much bigger than Portuguese. So what else you could expect? Because 10 years, 15 years ago, you would not imagine that. So we are living pretty nice economic life. Could things be better? Of course. the sky is the limit. So, well, we should think what could be different in our countries. And firstly, probably the worst thing for us, we are small. Even together, we are very small. Because when you speak with somebody in Romania, where they have, I guess, around 30 million people, they believe they're small. So just imagine how small we are, which means the companies are not coming for our markets. Well, some, like pharmaceuticals, they would come for the markets, but otherwise, well, Poland, it's the place where you would come for the market, but not the Baltics, even Lithuania, which is the largest of them, but still so tiny, small. Another problem which we have, which we cannot change ourselves, of course, the neighborhood. We are on the edge of European Union, and in addition, we have the neighbors. And those neighbors are not the best. And last year, in the beginning of last year, before the February 24th, we had slightly one situation. In March, we had completely different situation because the investors for the countries that are further away from Europe, like Canadians or Americans, they look slightly differently on what's happening there. And for them, it's really difficult to realize that Vienna, Austrian capital, is closer to Kiev than Vilnius. And in theory, they could have the more problems. So they're afraid, they stop investments, they stop the plans. And of course, that had the impact. Well, I hope when the war is over, that situation would change completely. And everyone would feel that we are in a very secure place. Let's see how that will happen. And there is a letter on another side. Let me try to put it off.
Hook up there.
Yeah, down, and you should take the painting off.
So, nice.
Okay.
I need to step. Så som ett uttryck av min tacksamhet för all gästvänskap. Jag åkte till ert hem och för all hjälp med lämnat till Litauen. Ber jag till er för överlämnaren talar Simonis första Litauen styrare. This is a thank you letter from what do you call it, Bürgermeister, mayor, the mayor in Stockholm.
Yeah.
The mayor in Stockholm has given this to the.
No, opposite. He was giving by. Put it here. He was given. I see Lithuanian translation here, and says letter. That Madam and Mr. Bürgermeister, please accept this gift as appreciation for your help.
So, now see it. Of course, it is sent from the Lithuanian legation,
Yes.
embassy kind of in Sweden. Okay, so.
And they use the art very often in relation with Sweden. And I have another beautiful sculpture in the second floor, which is also was bought in Sweden like 14 years ago. Because there are two of them surviving in the world only, and one of them was in Sweden. Another issue which we have, which is difficult to change but possible, it's, well, we need more talents. And not only talents, we need more people, working people. And that's probably why Lithuania, and I believe the same with Latvia and Estonia, we are very happy to greet Ukrainians that are coming here because firstly, those people are most similar to us. That could be possibly. Well, maybe it's not completely nice to say so, but I would be happy if they would stay forever. And part of them, of course, will stay because they cannot come back to destroyed houses. Some of them, they lost the spouses during the war, and some of them would stay in this place. And we would be as pleased about this as possible. So this issue could be changed in the way, but the problem is being from the small countries, this complicated history, we are too much conservative. And for our politicians, and firstly for society, that politician represents, society is concerned that the people that are coming from the other country would take the jobs, that the salaries would not increase as they could, and that's a big problem. Because in my view, it's the opposite situation. I had a client once a few years ago that came, that was looking for the service centers, but to do the service centers, the client needed like 2,000 engineers. Well, I'm not sure where in Baltics in total you would find 2,000 available engineers. In Lithuania, there's definitely not. So if we would have the 1,000 Ukrainian engineers, maybe we could have 1,000, and that would be new working places. And my argument is that when you have more different talents and blue workers and whatever, you can attract many more investments. But unfortunately, politicians see that as very different colors, and they are assisted by trade unions that also see that in different way.
So what about Swedish books?
I have number of them because there is a lot of history between Sweden, Lithuania, and Poland. And starting with the Ole Magni book, which is important piece in early centuries, finishing with different books on the Swedish, Lithuanian, Polish wars description. So yeah, I mean that's important part of the collection.
Yeah, it's a part of the Lithuanian
Maybe not
history.
the biggest, but really important because Swedish relationship was always important here during the years.
Out of curiosity, how much do you read that is not business related in an average week?
Couple of hours, probably.
Okay. So it will take some time to go through 2,000 books.
Yeah, but that's why retirement is a dream for some people, because because look, some books I never touched after they bought them. But some books you really look because if they're in Latin, and this is the first history of Lithuania.
Okay.
And look, those books from early ages, they still survive very well.
They're very well.
But if you would look at the books of 19th century, when the paper was not handmade, those are in much worse shape, completely worse shape. Then we have other issues, maybe some of them are different country by country. For example, I believe that one of the biggest problems we have in Lithuania is connectivity by air. Well, not only by air, I mean, all of us have the problem with connectivity, with the rail, with the sea. The ships are not as frequent, not as quick, but the air for the business, for investment is specific matter. So Latvia and Riga here stands as in much better situations than Vilnius and Tallinn. And I'm really jealous to see that between 7 and 9 o'clock from Riga airport, probably there are like 9, 10 directions, not by the cheap islands, but by classical islands that would go to the business centers in Europe. And from Vilnius, we would have one or maximum two, and that makes the huge difference. When investors decide where to invest, they have those questionnaires and they have the points, and sometimes one point can decide a lot. And when you hear investors saying about connectivity, I believe we lose more than one investor a year because of that, because of so bad connectivity we have. Well, we have the same actually number of the connection of the directions than Riga has. Well, the problem is the most of them are like the cities like Manchester or Tromsø or wherever. It's not the place where investors come, and most of them are served by the not classical islands. In Riga is different, so it's very helpful for Riga in that respect. And I believe that if we lose couple of investments a year, I mean, not that they are leaving from Lithuania, but they are not coming.
Not happening.
Yeah, they are not happening. Yeah. Don't ask why, but there is calculation in my mind that one investment would bring 20 to 30 million euros in taxes a year. Well, there are huge investments like Thermo Fisher that brings hundreds of million euros in taxes. There are smaller, but 20 to 30, that would be what I see from my clients and the members of Investors Forum. And that's the number of money. Just think, if we would put 50 million euros a year into air industry, in the airlines that would have the main bases in Vilnius, how much flights we could have, and how many directions we could have double daily to Stockholm, the flight leaving not at 6 o'clock in the morning, and not the one flight to Tallinn that leaves, I guess, around 10 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. That's the only flight to Tallinn from Vilnius, which is terrible, but we could have the double flights to 27 needed directions in Europe. Let's not speak about other places, the Europe, that would be important. Then definitely this money would cover that. But let's not talk about the European legislation, state aid, because when there is a political will, then you can find the legal ways how to do it. And those money spent would be well paid, because investment would return this money immediately in a couple of years. So that's the problem, where I believe the Latvian government is doing much better job than Lithuanian, and Latvian politicians are looking much for wide to connectivity issue, because sometimes they get the criticism about the money they wasted. I guess the figure mentioned was 250 million during 5 years. In my view, it's not money wasted, it's money invested in the right direction.
So I've been so impressed what they're gathering. For example, the maps, this is one of the biggest or the biggest map collection, definitely the biggest one of the Lithuanian maps, I recall, right?
Well, that's called privately owned,
Privately
the largest. I'm not sure exactly whether the State Museum have the same, but maybe even not.
This about kind of having the biggest or the most interesting pieces. How important is that for a collector? Is this a little bit like sports or in business? It's important to be the best, to be winning? How do you see it?
Not at all for me, but it's easy to say me so, because probably I was the first among the collectors to move to those different directions. Because the collectors who came from the Soviet time, they are pretty secret, they kept the things in their houses, because some of them get into troubles because of collecting during the Soviet time. So with new generations, which I assume I'm coming from the new generation, I probably was the first, to go with such a wide approach to the things. And natural that, in Turtle we have the largest map collections, we have the largest old book collection, we have the largest Vilnius description collection, and probably the folk art collection, probably definitely the largest. And I was never in the competition with anybody, and it was, I believe in my collection there are like 2,000 old books, and to my best knowledge the second largest collection would be around 300 books. So it's not competition.
I started to work in this job that I have for SEB in the Baltics, head in corporate banking in 2016. And what I heard from almost the first day when I started to talk to clients, that what you touched upon, the access to people. Of course, salary inflation is one thing, has been a theme over the years, but it's even more kind of the lack sometimes to find the right skill of the people that you need. And I can take an example from our own business then. I mean, we have big shared service centers and IT development here in Vilnius and in Riga. But when we in S01E01, the big corporate bank, when they were opening up a similar type of support organization, they actually opened up in Warsaw. And the reason for that was that they realized that, it was tricky to even to find people with certain skills in the Baltic markets. But in Warsaw, it was a number of other international, especially investment banks that had their back offices, their operations on, and thereby you could recruit in people from those banks. So I think it has to do with, you say this, with also the size of the countries. I think one thing that I've been thinking about, what can we do then? I can understand that there's a political cautiousness in relation to the voters, to kind of being too open to the borders. On the other hand, in opening up for specialists to come here, what can we do in order to increase the attractiveness to have the specialists coming here? Because I'm totally on your side that this will just create a bigger local wealth that is beneficial for everyone.
Let's separate how to attract them, and another question is how to make them more easy entrance. It's two different matters in my view. Well, if we would speak about Vilnius as the example, the city which is closest to my heart, in my view, is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. I really like the old town of Vilnius, which is so beautiful. And I believe the number of restaurants, number of entertainment and everything, it makes the city a nice place to live. Speaking about the foreigners, well, there is a number of international schools. Could be more different languages, but the number of the schools we have right now, it's sufficient for people to come and to find a place for their kids to go somewhere. But what could be different? Why people are coming to one of a location? Well, firstly, not necessarily the first priority, but of course they need to earn a reasonable amount of money. And here it's a bit related with taxation issue as well. For example, now we have the social insurance capping on the salaries, but we have the what we call progressive taxation on income tax. So you pay not 27% or 32% if you earn more than this. And that's what they call by politicians what the social equality, and of a different nice word. In my view, it's completely wrong. Well, of course, we want to attract the people that earn a lot. Because if they earn a lot, firstly, they pay more taxes, not in percentage-wise, but in absolute numbers. Secondly, they spend a lot of money here. They attract other people and friends, because the rich people, they can easily attract the guests and whatever from other countries that visit them. And then you have the circle that starts to move. And in my view, well, the limits should be kept. And if I would be our government, I would eliminate those 5% as soon as possible. And this draft exists in the package for the reform of taxes of the government that probably they will submit to Parliament at the end of June. The problem is that this beautiful proposal is supported by other proposals that are not as positive. And now there is a lot of discussion, and we don't know whether that reform would happen or not. In my view, the politicians should stop making simple mathematical calculation as they often do. If they would eliminate the tax, we would attract not just more people, but more investment. Because I know by myself, by my clients, that they would go to different locations because it's open-ended taxation of the big salaries. And the companies are established sometimes in Spain, sometimes in Gibraltar or other places. Just think about hedge funds. Hedge funds hire the expensive experts who are looking what's happening in the world. And probably you know better about that topic, but to my best knowledge, this income of those people are anything between 1 and 5 million yearly with bonuses.
It's a nice living, yes. It's
nice living, and this job lets you to live wherever you want in the world, because you can do that job, from wherever. And we had the beautiful Vilnius. We had the beautiful weather during the summer, not as much the beautiful weather during the winter and November and February and March. And plus we have the taxation that sometimes doesn't look attractive. So what do people do? Some of them, they like Vilnius so much that they decide to live, or Riga or Tallinn, that they decide to live here as anyhow. But many people have different choices. For example, they can decide to live in Dubai 7 months and to be tax resident there. To my calculations, there are a few hundred Lithuanians that are living 5-6 months in Spain. It's not so difficult for them to live months or couple of months longer in Spain and to become tax resident there. So I believe the government had this short view on how they could get more taxes in the budget, because they are playing too much of political games about solidarity and equal possibilities for the people. Essentially what they achieve, less of solidarity, because less of taxes are coming to the budget, and possibility to increase the salaries for the teachers, for the medical personnel and other people, or the bigger pensions, is reduced. So it's a big mistake. And probably one of the most important pieces of silver is this clock, which is coming from the middle of 17th century.
Wow.
And there are 3 surviving in Lithuania. That shows how good masters lived here, but nowadays you would not find anything too much. It's all about 1655. 1655 was the first time when Vilnius was taken by the enemy. Never before in the life. They were attacking the castle, crusaders, but they were never won. And 1655, Moscow army took Vilnius first time. And according to the chronics of that time, the carriages The queue of the carriages with the goods stolen here was from Vilnius to Smolensk.
Wow.
One by one going there. So everything was taken. And whatever was not taken that time, was taken in the 19th century when Russia was back here. And of course, we demonstrate different books related to Lithuania. As you can see, some of them are in Latin, some of them are in Polish. And that's where we come by the limited number of books in Lithuanian, because that's about the pagan. Once we didn't have the Christianity, we didn't have the written language, which means the aristocrats sent their sons to Krakow University, where they slowly got the Polish language, because they have to learn in Polish, of course, there, and Polish culture, and the aristocrats slowly they turn to identifying themselves as Polish language a lot. Where the lower class was still speaking Lithuanian, then aristocrats, well, many of them spoke Lithuanian as well, but the main language for them became Polish. And of course, in the books, majority of the books were in Polish.
When you discuss with also with investors and companies, how do you see about the salary inflation? I mean, so far it seems that the Baltics actually, I generalize here, taking all the countries, have managed quite well, the corporates, to improve the efficiency, to manage this high salary. Maybe there are some signs that we are not managing it to 100%, but anyway, overall, when looking at this quite high salary inflation figures.
It is. I wouldn't feel any direct consequences on the present investors, so that they would consider moving somewhere else. Of course, if you would have the sewing factory, that would affect you dramatically. But when we speak about IT sector or fintechs or service industry, if you would compare what you would pay in Stockholm, if you would hire the IT people, AML people, whatever, and even with the increase of the prices here, the margin is still so large that it doesn't affect. Well, if you would look at the Danske Bank service centers, 4,000 employees. The Danske Bank is done if the service center would stop suddenly. I mean, all the service is in Vilnius. And so far I see they're very happy, and I hope SEB is very happy about what they're getting here. So would you take a risk to move it to China? No, not of course. I mean, now you're looking how to get things from China closer to your place. So I believe, it doesn't have effect now. If that would continue, there's always leverage. If it would become too high, then the investment in the area would stop, and that would affect the reduction then. So the balance will be there another way. But we still have long way to go to the Swedish, Danish, Finnish salaries.
But from my perspective, I think in order to increase the wealth of the general employed person here, of course, one need to have, in order to bridge this gap, close the gap versus the Nordics, then of course you need to have a quite high salary inflation. But also then you need to pair that one with the value add, and that's why what we're talking about, in order to be able to ensure that the education system is producing people that can take those advanced jobs, that one can get the international specialists coming in to produce the jobs, so you get the value added out of the employees. I think that is the key thing, and how to balance this.
When you said value added, that reminded me the largest, I would not call it a problem, but largest unhappened matter, not just in Lithuania, but I believe in Baltics in general. Because still we don't have any brand that would be worldwide recognized, that people would pay the margin. And when you look at the Scandinavians, there are so many brands you have, and people pay money because of the brand. That helps for the companies to do better things. And we have way to go still there.
And when talking about brand, we can talk about a brand of certain products and so on, or services, but we can also talk about brand on countries. And And I mean, some countries have been good in branding themselves, willingly or not willingly. And what do you see? How could what are the brands of the Baltic countries, or what could they be, the strong brands? I see, for example, that when we do business in Germany, we have approaching the larger German corporates there, and it works extremely well to be seen as Swedish, because Sweden has a good brand name in Germany. And on top of that, when we discuss things about sustainability, we get into the blue chip, large German companies on that. And this is, of course, it's knowledge is one thing, but it's also the brand of what is Sweden in Germany that is helping us there.
Well, those things are always better seen from outside than inside, and I would be interested in your opinion more than myself. But if you would force me to say something, how Baltic countries are perceived, so obviously Estonia managed to build the e-country image pretty successfully, and what they did, it deserves admiration. Because when I compare what's happening in Estonia and Lithuania, the difference sometimes is not that large. But from the brand point of view, they did so much better, essentially, and they deserve applause because of that. When you speak about Latvia, well, sometimes the people are joking the best brand of Latvia for Lithuania is that Latvia is that Riga is the capital of Lithuania. It's still happening with the foreigners. When you have a discussion with somebody, yes, Riga, capital of Lithuania, so that. But I mean, in my eyes, what is the best thing related to Latvia is connectivity. Air Baltic, it's really one of the best products that Latvian government, Latvian politicians, and Latvian business did. So probably that would come from my mind. Well, Lithuania, where I believe, many people believe that and it's almost true, I guess, or somewhere between two, that fastest internet, it's where Lithuania is. And really, that's true. I mean, wherever you go, you had as such good internet, it's easily. And of course, Lithuania built, maybe that's not known in each circles of business, but Lithuania is really a country of fintechs. Because if you would consider, I mean, definitely at least the third place in Europe after UK and Luxembourg. And if you speak about EU, that would be at least the second place. And I hope that our politician and central bank would continue supporting the fintechs. That create the risk, but the advantage and benefits we get is really huge. And I guess IT sector in Lithuania is really booming, and that's clearly seen in many foreign countries. When you speak with the British lawyers, for example, or German lawyers, they would say many things what they heard about IT in Lithuania.
Do you have any views about the school system in general? Is it where it should be in order to produce these really talented people that is needed, or could it do more?
No.
Because this is something that we have debate every month about, to say, in Sweden, that we want the school system to actually be better.
It definitely not there where it should be. And the proud father of the four I know, well, all of my three kids and my daughter is still in the school in Vilnius Lyceum, which was the brand as the best school for many years of Lithuania. But if you would look at our educational system, and both secondary schools and universities, we are not where we should be, which is good, because we have so many opportunities. If we would improve the things, we would really can do much more. And firstly, that related with the salaries of teachers, if you go to the kids level. And of course, it's so difficult to get motivated people to choose the teacher profession with the income of the teachers they get. Well, there are good people that go there, but we need more of the best because they teach our children. And that's so important. And again, that's coming with the tax and money that could be allocated there. Infrastructure of the schools are not organized in the best way, in my view, in Lithuania. For political reasons, there are a lot of games about the school where there are just few children. And of course, if the country can afford it, if we are able to allocate, it's good to have the schools very close to the home of the children. But obviously, we cannot afford that today. So it is better that kid would travel 10 kilometers, but he would be taught by the teacher that knows what he is doing, that he is motivated. Then he travels 500 meters and he is taught by somebody who is not motivated, who doesn't care, who is not sure how much is 2 plus 2, and that's a big issue. Well, we have a lot of discussion that we should learn from Finnish educational system, and there are a lot of discussions that Estonia really moved forward in that respect, and there is a lot of advantages there. But unfortunately, we haven't managed to do the reform yet in the schools, and we just lost the Minister of Education, so hard to say how the reform would proceed furthermore. If we go to universities, well, I was the chairman of one governmental group about the reform of universities, and I was member of another group. I said to myself, never, ever again I would be member of the group. Why? Because both groups did a reasonably good job, in my view, presented the results to the minister presented to the parliament, and there the reform was killed. It was not political will to do the reform because they were afraid how the rectors would react, how the students would react, and they left many things how there. The biggest problem that we have today, the financing of the universities organized in the way where people are willing to the so-called social professions. Like they want to become lawyers, they go to study different matters, but not the physics, not mathematics, not engineering, not the professions that are really so much needed for economical development of the country. And as long as we would not have the reforms that would motivate people to change that, we would not achieve what we could achieve otherwise.
So universities are not really able to attract the best students?
Oh, they're able to attract, but those people choose easy professions.
Yeah, that's what I meant. They are not choosing the professions.
Yeah, they are not able to attract professions that are much more important for economical development of the country, like, for example, engineers.
Yeah.
Well, you can produce 1,000 lawyers, and
or bankers maybe.
Well, bankers are still better than lawyers.
Okay.
They're still better people than lawyers, but I would like that we will produce many more engineers than lawyers.
Yeah.
And now we have the opposite situation.
No, I agree on that one. But what about because we come back to, I think, one thing that is limiting, and that is of course also the mere size of the countries, as you say. I mean, and that goes into the educational system as well, because it costs to have a top 100 league university being in that league in the world as well. So you need to have kind of the scale of it and the tax income of it and so on, and be able to fund it in a good way. Or having kind of corporates that have put in money into it and supporting it and so on. Could one in various areas do more of cooperation in order to also give the feeling of a bigger market, more harmonized regulation and so on? Now, a very wide question.
But you see, before you go to cooperation with other countries, and that's happening, cooperation, it's happening. As I told, I'm chairman of Baltic Management Institute, and that was established as consortium of the different European business school like HSE. the Paris School,
France.
which is one of the very leading business schools in not just in Europe but in the world, by Copenhagen Business School, by the Leuven Business School, and by Bergen Business School. And that really helped, to prepare the programs, where we have the professors coming from different places, not just from those 4 universities, but from different places, where the EMBA program was really, really nicely made. And as I said, we had like 1,000 graduates during the years, and people that are proud to be the part of this alumni group of BMI, because they believe the values they received is really nice. So there is a cooperation, but I mean, our problem is not there. Our problem is that in Lithuania, I don't afraid to say exactly how many universities we have today, but I would believe at least 2 times too many. Because in addition of being called university, you have the autonomy, which is reapproved by Constitutional Court. So what the autonomy means? Autonomy means that they get the money and do whatever they want with the money, and they get money from the budget. And you cannot tell them how to spend this money. So yes, universities tend to go the way that the rector or senate decides, and those ways are probably good for that particular university. But is that good for the country?
Have you ever thought about becoming a politician? Because quite many of the things that you're referring to, it kind of stops at the political end, right?
Well, to answer your question, whether I considered, well, yes, I thought about that more than 10 times, and each time I came to the very, very conclusion, never ever. Never ever, because of the few things. Firstly, I do not believe I would be able to make the impact, because there is a need for more people from the business to go to the politics to make the impact, and I don't see those people willing to do so yet. Secondly, I believe I had such intensive life of being a lawyer and being active in different public work, that whenever I'll have the possibility, I would like to do something different, more fun for me. Like, for example, I'm willing to become the guide of my museum.
Yeah.
Because now we have like art experts who are making the excursions around, and we usually do just guided tours, because guided tour is the best, because that's how the people watch not the wall or the frame of the painting, but they get the idea what it's all about. And I'm not an art expert for obvious reason, but I'm the one who bought each piece of the collection, and there are 8,000 items in the collection. Yes, it's
8,000.
Yes, I believe it's probably one of the largest art collection in Central Europe, private, of course. So I know history of the item, and I know stories that art experts would never know. So that I believe I would be perfect art guide, and I would enjoy it. And I do this actually time to time for my clients, for people I know, for the foreign guests, and I haven't seen anybody who would leave the museum without the mouth open widely.
Thank you very much for taking time and discussing these very important topics for the countries going forward. Thank you.